find trends and themes and then narrow it down.
Okay.
5:31 and generally it seems like we have technology back in our favor. So here we go. Thank you to all of you who have come out tonight. I just want to sort of set some ground rules both for my applicants that are here today. I am Mickey Huntsman, the city clerk for the city of Reno, for those of you who don't know who I am. We'll go ahead and go down and do some introductions of our group of applicants. And lastly, Hannah, do you mind if you and I switch? Because I think actually you being here would make more sense. If the intent is that they participate with what she's saying. Better, thank you. Okay, so we will go through a period of time where I allow you each to make introductions of yourself, to tell us a little bit about who you are and why you applied for this position. It should be no more than 3 minutes. We have curated a list of questions that were submitted by the public. So what we essentially did was we took those questions, found out what kind of the general topics were, or we used some that were directly phrased right from the list of questions that we received from constituents over the last several days. So it's going to be a little bit of a mix of both questions that we received and also some questions that we sort of compiled, 3 that were similar and made it into 1. And then lastly, we'll go into a closing comments period. If you guys have any last closing thoughts or opinions that you'd like to share, that first portion of this should really take about an hour. And then the secondary piece will just open up the floor, allow you all to go out and mingle with those who are here presently and connect. And if there's any questions that I wasn't able to cover today, that would be an opportunity for all of you to go ahead and ask whatever the direct line of questions are that you may have independent of the questions that I asked. This is not intended to be a debate. This is intended to be a period of time when those that are with us here in person and virtually, just to get to know you, to get to understand why you're here, what your concerns and interests are in this position. So I would just ask that our applicants be respectful of each other. Again, this is not intended to debate in any format. Everybody will have the equal amount of time to answer the questions. And I think for those in the audience participating both live and via Zoom, there was a lot of questions and comments submitted in relation to process. Are you in alignment with the process? And I just want to say that first and foremost, the intent and purpose of today and tomorrow's meeting is to get to know these individuals and to understand where they want to take Ward 3. So I'm just going to say out loud right now that I will not be asking questions about the appointment process because it wasn't a decision that these 4 individuals made. They're just participating because they want to make that community better. So I just want to be very clear about that line of questioning because I did get several questions about that and it's not what it's going to come up today. All right, so we'll start on this. I think you're closest to me. So unfortunately for you, tomorrow you'll learn your lesson. You did choose right, and then I understand, but we switched up on you. So Miguel, I'm going to give everybody like 2-minute introduction. If you use the whole time, great. If you don't, we'll just move right along. And so if you'd like to start us off today, that'd be awesome.
Yes, sounds good. All right, good evening. Buenas tardes a todos. My name is Miguel Martinez, and I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you to the City of Reno staff who made this hybrid event a possibility. I'm happy to be up here and say that I'm one of the finalists to fill the City Ward 3 vacancy. I was born and raised in Ward 3. My parents immigrated to this country to give their children a better opportunity. I grew up here in a mobile home park right behind the Philadelphia cheesesteak off of Gentry and Kitski Lane. I graduated from North Valleys High School, Truckee Meadows Community College, the University of Nevada, Reno, and Virginia Tech. Presently in my career, I do programming at TMCC, which focuses on student success and preparing students for life after high school. I applied for the seat because I want to serve the people of the city, and more specifically, the people of Ward 3. I have served throughout my life, whether it was nonprofits or coordinating volunteer opportunities for students. If I get appointed to the seat, my top 3 priorities are housing, public safety, and parks and recreation centers. I want to make sure our streets are clean, our neighborhoods are safe, and that we have opportunities for our community to access the city's parks and recreational centers. Thank you for having me. I look forward to the discussion we will have here tonight. And I also want to briefly share my message in Spanish for the folks listening online or here in person. Soy Miguel Martínez, uno de los finalistas para el nombramiento del concejal del Distrito 3 en la ciudad de Reno. Me da orgullo el haber sido creado en Reno, Nevada. Esta comunidad me brindó las oportunidades que tengo y quiero ser un buen representante de nuestra comunidad. Si me nombran al concejal, mis prioridades serían vivienda, la seguridad de nuestra comunidad y aumentar la accesibilidad de los parques y recreación para todos los miembros de nuestra comunidad. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Sean Savoy. I am also born and raised in Ward 3. I was born in Ward 3, raised in many different wards, but live and work in Ward 3 now. I was born at Washington Medical Center, and probably twice far as you were born in terms of years. And I'm also very grateful for the opportunity to sit before you and to have applied for the opportunity to serve Ward 3, but also to see, in total, I'm a believer in community. I believe in collaboration. I believe in working together across boundaries, across ward boundaries as well. So for those who don't know me, I'm going to also say a few words in Spanish. I'm son of an immigrant. My mother was born in Lima, Peru, and my father was a World War II veteran and a member of the Great Depression era. For those of you that appreciate our seniors. My father passed away 15 years ago. So I just want to say this in Spanish. Bienvenidos a nuestra charla y gracias por la oportunidad de hablar con ustedes. Para los que no me conocen, mi nombre es Sean Savoy, el cual es mi apellido materno, y Ontaneda, cual es mi apellido materno. Soy hijo de un veterano de la Segunda Guerra Mundial y una inmigrante de Lima, Perú. Nací aquí en Reno hace 50 años en el Hospital Reno, donde yo trabajo en este momento. Y crecí en Reno. He vivido en esta ciudad, en varios lugares, estaba educado en nuestros colegios. He trabajado toda mi vida. Siempre he estado involucrado, trabajando para los residentes, para el progreso de todos, desde mi labor de ministro, administrador, activista en materias de asuntos de derechos humanos y derechos civiles. Y como defensor de la gente marginada, de la juventud y de los pobres. Siempre abogando para que haya justicia con todos y en materias de derechos por los de salud, director de ciudad, cuidado espiritual en Reno, y como creador y presidente de la Comisión de Derechos Humanos de Reno, la primera para nuestra realidad.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being here. To everyone joining us on Zoom, thank you as well for joining us virtually. And for those of you who can't attend tonight but submitted questions, looking forward to answering those. It's great to be here in Evelyn Mount. This is actually the room where the Reno Access Advisory Committee met while I was a member of that board. And there's a lot of incredible programming and recreational opportunities happening here. So I'm glad we're in this space tonight and that you all can be here. My name is Courtney McKinney. I'm born and raised in Nevada. I grew up in Douglas County, but I've been in Reno for 8 years now. Growing up, I played a lot of sports and played on a Reno club soccer team. So there were many years where my parents were driving. We were coming to Reno 3-4 times a week to attend practice, games, tournaments. And just in that incredibly short amount of time, my lifespan, we've seen tremendous growth and changes in our community. And it's been an honor to serve our state and our local community in a variety of public service roles, from serving as a senior policy director for our state lieutenant governor, Kate Marshall, to being a member of our Nevada Army National Guard, and to also having been a member of the Reno Access Advisory Committee, which is focused on making sure our city is as inclusive as possible to our residents with disabilities. I also want to say thank you to the city staff for helping facilitate tonight's event and taking the time, the technology, to make sure everyone can participate in this process. My why is really about why I love public service in the first place. It's because you can wake up in the morning and know that you are going to work to make a difference in someone's life. But more importantly, there's another part of that question of what more can I do to help people? And that question was really front of mind every single day during the pandemic when we were fielding calls and concerns from our small business owners, our single parents, our veterans, our young professionals, and they were reaching out to our state office to ask what more can you do to help us during this time. And that's really what drove me and inspired me to help start a delivery leave program for our residents that were high risk individuals of catching COVID and passing away from the disease. And I'm really proud of the opportunities we had to serve 70,000 meals across the region during that difficult time. And so for me, when looking at the opportunity to apply for this position, it was that question of what more can I be doing to make a difference in people's lives. So I'm really honored to be here tonight as a finalist with you all. And hablo un poco de español, pero entiendo mucho si hablas despacio. Gracias.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Edgerton. Hola, buenas noches a todos. Soy Kyle Edgerton. It's good to be at the Evelyn Mount Center for a lot of the same reasons. I've missed a lot of baskets in that gym downstairs. So it's good to be back. I am a father, a small business owner, an attorney, a bike commuter. Soy un padre, tengo un negocio propio. Soy un abogado y también me navigo por la ciudad en mi bicicleta. I was born and raised in Reno, Nevada. I graduated from McQueen High School. Worked for Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada, running the immigration program. Nací aquí en Reno. And me gradué de la secundaria de McQueen y empecé a trabajar en las calles católicas del norte de Nevada. I ran the immigration program there for about a half a decade, and then I went on to law school to bring back more skills and abilities to serve a lot of the same populations here in Reno. Después de trabajar en la iglesia o en servicios católicos, fui a estudiar derechos en la Escuela de Derechos y regresé aquí a Reno con más habilidades, más cosas que podía hacer para la comunidad en el reino legal. And it's been great being back. I had a short stint in Alaska, clerking for the Supreme Court there. And it's been a pleasure and a privilege to explore new abilities of practicing law that has brought me again into service of some of our most vulnerable members of our community. También pasé un tiempo en Alaska y cuando regresé aquí a Reno, tuve la oportunidad de practicar mis nuevas habilidades y ayudar a más personas de las mismas comunidades que siempre habían servido, pero también en nuevos contextos. So I have a track record that I'm proud of serving some of our most vulnerable, and it's something that I continue to do and I'm passionate about. Tengo antecedentes de servir a las partes más vulnerables de nuestras comunidades y es algo para que tengo un compromiso y quiero seguir haciendo. Important topics to me, again, as you'll hear from the rest of the panelists, I think, include housing, public safety, and access to our parks and recreation. Igual como los demás aplicantes, temas importantes para mí son las viviendas, la seguridad pública, y también acceso a nuestros parques y también oportunidades para recreación. Public safety for me includes having an adequate fire department, its officers that are both integrated into the community and all three function. And it also includes safe streets, which is something I'm passionate about as a bike commuter, as someone who moves through our streets, not always on a vehicle, and it gives me insight into what's the pitfalls. Y para mí, la seguridad pública es algo que no solamente es los bomberos, las policías, pero también que tengamos calles que podemos navegar todos, a menos de que tengamos coches, bicicletas, estamos caminando. Y con mi perspectiva como alguien que se naviga en bicicleta y otras formas, tengo una vista, un perspectiva en esos desafíos. But why I'm applying this position again? I consider myself a problem solver. I like puzzles, and I'm someone who really is passionate about building consensus and bringing people together to find common ground. It's rooted in my philosophy about negotiation. ¿Por qué estoy aplicando? Porque soy una persona quien le gusta resolver problemas y también rompecabezas, podemos decir. Y tengo una pasión para llevar gente de distintos perspectivos juntos para que podamos resolver un problema encontrar cosas que compartimos. And also outreach is very important to me. Yes. Okay. We need the timer. Outreach is very important to me, reaching people where they are. También es muy importante para mí estar en la comunidad, accesando a las personas donde están para apoyar las cosas. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to the city staff. Gracias a todos, el personal de la ciudad. And I will stop talking. I'm asking for 5 more minutes. For about time.
No negotiation. All right, so again, as mentioned earlier, we're gonna just go into our question series. I do have 5 questions. We have curated generally, so I'm gonna have my chief deputy running clock. So when you hear his timer go off, that is your moment at least to wrap up.
I just want to notice.
Okay, and so I'm gonna ask the question. I have larger printed notes. I'm gonna hand it to you guys to just pass it down, so then you have the question in front of you, and I will be going in no particular order. Okay, so the first question today is, if selected as the Ward 3 representative, what do you believe are the most pressing issues for Ward 3, and how might you consider addressing these issues? So, Courtney, if you would like to start us off.
Oh. Great. Thank you for the question. I think at first you have to outline kind of what your vision is as a representative, and my vision for Ward 3 is really, in the city as a whole, is that it's a place where everyone can thrive. And what that means though, is that it's a place where you can afford to live. It's a place where you have economic opportunity. And it's a place where we have accessible and well-maintained community spaces. So breaking those down even further, right? Affordability, obviously, we're all top of mind of affordable housing prices and rental prices. As an 8-year renter in Reno until about 3 months ago, when I bought my first home here, which was not an easy thing to do, it was difficult to see my rent continue to increase without my pay matching that. Especially when I was a student here at the University of Nevada, Reno. And we have other students that are making the decision between housing and tuition and food sometimes. And there's a lot of ways we can address affordable housing. The first thing we need to do is be building all types of housing. The city, I think, has done a phenomenal job thus far of getting projects online. There's always more we can be doing to improve the efficiencies in our process and reducing bottlenecks so it doesn't take as long to build the housing we so desperately need here. And we're talking about economic opportunity. The one thing I really love about Ward 3 is the thriving small business community. And having worked at the Nevada Small Business Development Center and helped create the Office of Small Business Advocacy for the entire state, I'm very passionate about what we can do to continue to support our small business community. I was recently married this year, and we were able to have all of our vendors pretty much sourced from Ward 3. We got married on Wells Avenue, and we had a reception in the brewery district. And that's a pretty unique thing, I think, to Ward 3, given the diversity of commerce we have in the area. And lastly, when we're talking about our community spaces, we're talking about our parks, our recreation, but we're also talking about places that bring people together, such as our center, which is the only LGBTQ community center in our region right now.
Real quick question about the time. Is the juice worth the squeeze with the staccato English Spanish, or they're not? Tenemos varias personas aquí que no hablan, que no dominan en inglés, or we just dispense with that. Okay, I'll just stick to English. Perfect. Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Courtney said. Obviously, housing is a concern for everyone. In this ward, what I see a lot is a challenge with being a little bit penned in. And so I think that infill is very important for us. I also think that facilitating, a lot of the growth in other parts of the city is going to alleviate a lot of the housing pressures in Ward 3. You think about what the housing stock looks like in Ward 3, and a lot of that is going to be scooped up with, first-time home buyers as quickly as it's vacated by people that might be unwilling renters right now. So there's going to be a cycle, there's going to be some churn there. And I think that one of the things that we can do in addition to smart infill, I think that the city's mix is something like 4 to 5 units citywide is multi-family. So trying to do more of that, building up, we really can't build out very much. More than 3. Those are important topics. A challenge in Ward 3 or something to be aware of is a lot of our services are there, especially for our unhoused population, right? We have the CARES campus in Ward 3. We have, that's the access to some mental health facilities. A lot of folks we're kind of living rough or are in those parts of the river district. We've also, with putting the CARES campus in this well-sited part of the city, we've also separated them from the Hopes campus and some of the other places where folks go for service. So those are things to be aware of and try to facilitate movement there. And, again, our parks, everyone I think on the panel mentioned it. I live near Liston Park and Wilkinson Park, and down the way is Yorrie Park. And especially Yorrie Park is a place in our ward that is not, in Ward 3, but I live near parks that are in need of some additional love. And I think that we can get resources into the ward to reinvest in those areas and those public spaces, as Courtney said, in part by being good members of the council and helping facilitate projects that are going to lift everyone's interests, bring some of those resources into Ward 3, and also alleviate some of those housing pressures. So those are some of the topics I would cover. I think Courtney, perfect. Okay, statement about.
Thank you. I think some of what's already been said are givens, right? We want places and spaces that are accessible to the community for our families, for our seniors to enjoy, and where they can recreate safely. I also know, we all know that housing situation is of great concern to all of us, and how we tackle that is going to be a great debate, I'm sure, as the months roll on. And the city council is not the only player in that. So we have to be aware of the limitations of the city council when it comes to making some of these decisions. But certainly my great interest is, as Courtney said, when you're a renter in the community and you're having to pay higher and higher prices, and there are no controls on that at all, and you're not getting your income increase, or maybe you're getting a flash, maybe you're getting benefits cut because of the financial crisis. These are things we can consider how to take care of our community. But one of the big things that concerns me, coming from a background of human rights and healthcare, is the mental health of our community. And I'm very, very concerned that we are dealing with, as Kyle also mentioned, spaces and places in Ward 3 that are meant to serve the marginalized, those also experiencing homelessness and houselessness, and those experiencing mental health issues. We have our center, we have the Eddie House, we have the Kerosene Campus, we have Renowned Health where I work, we have the emergency room there. We have many other facilities in our district and our ward that are also in need of, I think, support of the whole city. The other area that concerns me is that Ward 3 is very rich in culture, and we have wonderful diversity in our ward. And I think we have a lot of wonderful, I know we have a lot of wonderful legacy neighborhoods, from downtown to Neal Road, to Montello, to Wells Avenue District, to Donner Springs. And as we begin to grow, I believe we need to also make sure that some of the resources come back to the legacy neighborhoods.
Yeah, thank you again for the question. Thank you all for being here. I know you all are very concerned with this selection for the recruitment process, and I'm happy you all are here to learn a little bit more about who we are and what we have to offer. My fellow applicants have already mentioned a lot of the priorities that are pressing for Ward 3. I think being able to support our local small businesses and expand the infrastructure that we have here in Ward 3 specifically, to get the flow of traffic, people moving a lot more efficiently. And similar to what one of the applicants said, we need to be aware of where the distinction lies, where the county takes over, where the city is in charge, and where the state is in charge. So learning how to navigate all of those complexities in local government and being the best advocate for our community. Y eso creo que es una cosa que me separa del resto de los aplicantes, porque lo que yo ofrezco es alguien que viene de la comunidad, que los puede representar a los miembros de nuestra comunidad de una manera que los demás aplicantes vienen fuertes con esa representación, pero tengo casi toda mi vida viviendo en Ward 3, por eso yo pienso el Distrito 3 y pienso que por eso puedo ser un buen representante, puedo escuchar lo que les está pasando en su vida y tratar de mejorar la vivienda de todos en nuestra comunidad.
Right. Question 2. Ward 3 is diverse in population and background. Past representation welcome diversity, oftentimes meeting the community where they work. What is your experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion? And can you highlight how you will engage with all residents as a Reno City Council member?
So I do like where this question is coming from. I appreciate the acknowledgement of the diversity, not just maybe racial, ethnic diversity that we have in the board, but also the difference between residential and commercial that's present and very unique to Ward 3, and being able to represent the interests of the people that live in the ward and the people that have small businesses in the ward. My experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion, I would say is I have a lot of experience in that sort of work. I mentioned this during my introduction, but I work for a program to close the equity gap and achievement gap for students here in the Washoe County School District and enrolling at the community college or the university system here. So I have been called in the past by one of my biology professors at PMCC, a collaborator that we worked on a lot. That my approach is a collaborative approach. I try to bring every voice to the table and make sure that if we're making decisions or advancing certain programming, that everybody has a voice and is able to express their concerns, and that we're able to negotiate something that can work for everybody. So to specifically answer the last part of the question, I don't think I did that. I would intentionally meet with members of the community, whether it is residents, small business owners, large business owners, to try to understand the complexities of their own realities and how, as a council member, I can represent them on upcoming agenda items or anything that's happening in the ward.
Thank you for allowing me to answer this question. It's very important to me. I've already expressed that I have a diverse ethnic background. I also come from a home that was more cross-generational. And so I have a great degree of respect for the elders, for those people who put in their time. I took care of my father, who was passing away of dementia at the age of between 75 and 80. So I understand the need to discuss healthcare needs of the elderly, their safety, their security, and their ability to access community resources. I'm giving a speech talk actually next week for the University of Nevada, Reno, to discuss biases that occur in healthcare. This speech will be given before medical students to discuss how they can better cope when they enter into the medical field. And 2 weeks from then on, I'll be also speaking to the Northern Nevada Human Resources Association on bias and bigotry, implicit and explicit biases. When we are dealing with crisis, and we're all dealing with crisis right now because we're handling a COVID pandemic situation, financial crisis, and others. When we have crisis, we are in a moment of tyranny. And when we're in tyranny, our biases become explicit. We're often at wit's end, and we always seem to go to the lowest common denominator. So it's very important for us to understand how we can help each other through burnout, how we can help each other through fatigue, and how we can help each other through stressful situations. I think my record speaks for itself. If you don't know me, I've been doing this work in the diversity for 35+ years. I was the chairman of the Martin Luther King Memorial Committee. I was an advisory board member of the Latino Research Center, and I founded 2 networks and coalitions for the LGBT community about serving diversity of and health. So I think it's very important for us to see across the board when it comes to cultural competency. It's not about race and ethnicity, as my friend here said. It's about socioeconomic diversity. It's about types of diversity that I think we need to pay more attention to in Reno because we are a diverse city. We are a very diverse ward. And, but I know that we can be a welcoming city to uphold the value and the dignity of all of our residents and our visitors as well. And this includes our refugees. We have visitors from other countries to this community here for safety and for opportunity. And I think what we can do, we can show them that it's possible for them to thrive here, just as we can thrive here if we have appropriate leadership to help us in collaborative efforts with county and leaders.
I'm out.
Throw it.
That's okay.
ITs.
I took some of the files and
There we go. Just right at the time. I think I like this question as well because oftentimes community is not able to attend events like this evening. A lot of the times community is not able to attend city council meetings and make sure their voice is heard or attend our NAB Ward 3 meetings to make sure their concerns are being heard as well. And I think when addressing that specific portion of the question of meeting community where it's at, I think the thing that I look forward to bringing to the city council is being a full-time city council person. I think it's important that our representatives are doing the work and outreach that it takes to meet residents where they're at and not expecting that our community members are always able to come and give us that feedback and see a continuous two-way street. And I've been proud to work across the state with a variety of stakeholders, our rural communities, our urban Southern Nevada communities, and our region here to get a lot of things done. A lot of times bringing people that don't always see eye to eye together and starting with the why are we all here today and where do we agree, and then working through some of the tougher things that we may disagree on. And so I think when we're talking about bringing diversity and equity and inclusion into our city council, it takes that outreach and also making sure that we have diverse voices on the council. You know, I believe if I were to be appointed, I would be the youngest person to ever serve on the city council. And, you know, being a member of the queer community as well and a member of our National Guard, as a woman in combat arms, which only recently opened up to women in 2016, I'm frequently the only woman in the room as well. And bringing that experience and youthful perspective to the council, I think would be very helpful. And, you know, I think I kind of talked about how I would engage with all residents as a city council member. And again, that full-time component, I think, is very critical for Ward 3 specifically. And, you know, that's also why I chose to serve on the Reno Access Advisory Committee, making sure our folks with disabilities were being represented as well.
I also like the question. For me, it kind of draws out the elephant in the room, right? You know, you can look at the panel and it's pretty obvious. I am a white cis man. I do speak Spanish, right? But you know, in terms of lived experience, my fellow candidates, my fellow applicants, you know, have one over on me. I won't purport to have a different position. So when it comes to just kind of lived experience of diversity, of being a marginalized person, I don't have it. What I do bring is a long track record, a long commitment of service, where I've always worked with and for people who are marginalized, who are, you know, disadvantaged in society. And that's basically been my entire career. And that is not just to give a lip service, but there really is. I'm motivated by service. I'm motivated by love. I'm motivated by a genuine need and desire to connect with people, find out what is challenging them and how I can help solve those problems. And so I think that that is something that I can bring to the table, even if my own personal lived experience doesn't measure up to the diversity of the ward. And that diversity of the ward, you know, we often talk about the importance of an applicant who speaks Spanish, who can communicate with the many Spanish-speaking members of the ward. But there's also a lot of diversity that even within the ward, right? I mean, we've got, you know, Cyan, Donner Springs. We have the Montello neighborhood. We have Wells Avenue, which, you know, has both housing and business. And so there's a variety of different communities with, again, distinct needs that need to be met by someone who's going to have an open heart and open mind to what those issues are. And again, I think that my work primarily is my experience with DEI issues. I think that I understand a lot of the conversation. I think that I understand what a lot of the kind of macro level dynamics are. I'm sensitive to them. I take pains to try and be as good of an ally and good of a partner as I can be in those matters. And I think that, when I've had opportunities to onboard people, bring on staff, bring on people into my orbit, I have been motivated by a desire to make sure that people have opportunities. Excuse me. And again, just to close briefly with outreach, it's core for me. I can speak languages and in different contexts.
All right, question 3. What do you envision your time commitment would be per week for this job? And how would you make the adjustment with your current job in order for constituents to interact?
Very good question. And it's a difficult one too, because I know what Courtney just mentioned about how you commit full time to the city council. But I would also like to suggest that, like many of you, we're juggling jobs and we're juggling lifestyles and juggling positions. I do not intend to go into this position to make it a career. What I mean by that is I'm not going to work for the city council so I can make money. The idea of going to the city council is that I can serve the city of Reno, which means, like the other members of the city council, we may have to have other income streams because we have to make sure that we have money to live beyond the career, the short career that may be our time in the city council, whether that be an appointment or whether that be an election. So that's something I think very important to consider. That does also entail difficulties, right? Because you have to be balancing and juggling multiple responsibilities. But I'm very well versed in juggling and multitasking. I have served on numerous boards and numerous commissions my entire professional career. And I thrive in that, actually. I thrive in being able to handle multiple opportunities and multiple obligations, all in the realm of service to others. And I will have to say that if I am lucky enough, and if you trust me enough, and if the city council trusts me enough to put me in the position of city council person, that certainly I would have to take other obligations and reduce those so that I could serve the people of Reno and Ward 3 on a more full-time basis. I do have my work at the hospital in spiritual care. I oversee volunteers, students, and spiritual care practitioners. I'm also on several committees and boards within that system. And I have so far the goodwill of my colleagues and my leaders who believe that I can serve and help this city of Reno and also maintain my position. So that would be my goal, to continue to lead in healthcare, but also to continue to represent the city of Reno and the people.
Thank you. This is something I thought about quite a lot as I was considering applying. And I was very encouraged to have my spouse come along and really kind of push me into this opportunity. Because I think this is a pretty easy question for me to answer, a pretty easy challenge for me to solve. The benefit is I'm self-employed, right? And so I can decide how much I work in the outside world. And I'm fortunate to have had a successful business that I can, again, direct as I choose, and don't need to worry so much about the income side of things. And so my answer to this question would be, I would be full-time into this role, aside from being a parent, a father, right? Or a father and a spouse. If those three things are what I'm juggling, my business, my council role, and my family, the top two priorities would be my family and the council. My legal work could contract to the extent that I was able to. And I've thought about this, and I think I would impose some kind of a short-term new case moratorium. I wouldn't be taking on any matters, and I could very easily rejigger my calendar to avoid conflicts, keep Wednesdays clear, especially every other Wednesday, and make sure that I'm available to do council business and all the various other sundry boards I'd be appointed on. And obviously I have plenty of time to work with constituents. And then after some period of time in the role, I'd be able to scale back up, taking on new business, consequent to what I'm able to take on without sacrificing outreach, which I keep saying at the very end of my statements, that I'm passionate about. And so it's pretty easy. It pencils out economically. I think it also pencils out in terms of my calendar.
It sounds like this question is of particular concern to a lot of the residents of Ward 3. It isn't the first time that I heard this question being asked to me directly. So I'm glad for the opportunity to speak on this a little bit more. I did, when I saw the announcement for the vacancy and decided to apply. That was a conversation that I had with my supervisor and the vice president at our community college. Being a state employee, I understand that there's a chain of command and a bureaucracy policies that need to be abided by, and so I made sure to communicate even before I submitted my application to my whole chain of command, so everybody knew that I was getting involved with this and that I needed flexibility in order to fulfill both roles. Luckily, Truckee Meadows Community College is a very flexible, wonderful place to work, so they're affording me the opportunity to have the flexibility to fulfill both of these roles. And in conversations with people who have held that position or hold it now, I will say that it can vary from their experiences, the time commitment that it takes to fulfill these roles. But I am fortunate enough to be in a position where my employer, and luckily my spouse, is very supportive of me being in this role and wanting me to be successful in this role. So that's definitely something that I don't take lightly, and that I will make the best effort that I can to represent Ward 3 and meet with the constituents to be able to gather the information needed to make informed decisions for our ward.
I just want to say that I did not know this was going to be a question, since I did address it in my last response here. I did also want to note, so I did obviously already say that this would be my full-time role. I would still maintain my position within the National Guard, which is 1 week in the month and 2 weeks every summer for annual training, which I've been a member of the Guard for 3 years now, working full-time, and also while I was completing my graduate degree full-time as well. So I think this would actually kind of be a step back from those prior commitments to being a full-time council person. I previously worked for the Lieutenant Governor, which most people don't understand or realize is a part-time position. But my mentor, my previous boss, she took it as a full-time position, and there was plenty of work to be done to make it a full-time position. Given the boards and commissions that you sit on as a council member, the prep work that goes into council meetings and those boards and commissions. And I think if you're really interested in doing the role right, you are constantly engaging with staff. You're receiving staff briefings, so you have the full picture and context of what that agenda item that has a brief paragraph and a supporting document actually looks like in real life for people. And in addition to that, also being able to have the time to go to neighborhood advisory board meetings, doing that very direct outreach, again, for specifically Ward 3, I think is so important. Just with that understanding that our residents aren't always going to be showing up to council meetings to make their voices heard. So in terms of time commitment, I would like to serve as a full-time council member.
Question 4. Have you been specifically active in Ward 3 activities, such as neighborhood advisory boards, etc.? And what have you learned about the needs based on those activities? Kyle.
I have not been on the NAB. I'm pretty sure years ago I was on a NAB in my old neighborhood when I was a renter, but I've not been involved in the Ward 3 NAB. And I think Courtney's point is well taken. That NABs are one of the main, or one of the ways that the council gets input kind of from a ground level. I also think it's the case that NABs are one of many tools that we ought to be deploying when we think about outreach. You know, there's folks that aren't in this room. Certainly there's stakeholders. There's folks that don't go to NAB meetings. I think that a good outreach strategy is one that is multifaceted, multi-pronged, reaching out as much as just kind of making opportunities to see who shows up, right? Because it's very easy to put on a process that says, all right, here's the time and place. Here's the people that showed up. Here's the input we got. Now we move on. You need to ask the question whether you reached the right folks and you did the outreach. That's something that I know from a lot of my work, especially with Catholic Charities doing immigration work, and I continue to do it now, reaching out to give people updates about legal changes or supposed legal changes or something they heard on the radio. A place that I've spent a lot of time is in Bowling Hall at the Little Flower Catholic Church, which is just kind of a place that historically we've held a lot of outreach events. And so again, that's reaching into people's lives, into places and spaces where they already are to provide information. And sometimes you catch a lot of people and sometimes you don't. And so those are things that you experiment with. I joked at the very outset that I've been involved in, recreational sports and things like that. And again, it's just finding ways to meet people and connect. I chat people at the grocery store. I kind of wherever you find people. I actually had an experience recently in Ward. I'm almost sure. I think it was at Staples. There was some kind of a computer issue and we couldn't go inside for a minute because the point of sale system was down. I was talking with a gentleman. And we were just kind of chit-chatting about the fact we couldn't go inside. And he began talking about how we're in dark times and things really feel like they're going over the deep end. And this went on for a couple of minutes. And the conclusion of the conversation was, it wasn't obvious to me what his politics are, just that he was concerned. We were able to have a face-to-face communication in a connected way, even though we might have had different political stripes. We didn't necessarily know it.
Yeah, so I also have not served on the neighborhood advisory board. But thinking back into what experiences I've had and activities within the ward specifically, and I'm trying to draw the boundaries in my head sometimes of specific areas. I look to my time when I was in college as a volunteer at the Volunteers of America homeless shelter and staffing the resource desk on Fridays during lunchtime when I had space between my classes. And just being there to support our unsheltered populations and, realizing too, a ton of the difficulties that come with being in that situation of simple things that most of us sometimes take for granted as receiving your mail and being able to pay bills for your cell phone. And that experience opened me up to a lot of this sense of community in Reno that I've been so proud to experience and have folks invest in me personally in my career and my endeavors. And I think where I've done a lot of outreach already in Ward 3 is primarily in our small business community with a lot of the owners on 4th Street that are up and coming restaurants, hotels, people who have invested their life savings into a project that they started in their basement years back. And I've done the same level of outreach to our small business owners along the Wells corridor. So I think drilling down into Ward 3 specific activities, that kind of is where I've been, but, going back to also the Delivering with Dignity program, that was a region-wide program. And I've also implemented activities at the statewide level as well. So I would like to take that statewide perspective and also be able to apply it to the projects that I bring to the table and experience at the Ward 3 level.
Like the others, I have not served on the neighborhood advisory board. I did attend my first staff meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I see the chairs here, so thank you. But I have spent the last 7 or 8 years actually proposing, creating, founding, and serving on the Human Rights Commission for the city of Reno. I'm grateful to the city council for having that project with me. And in a project like that, you cross boundaries. All neighborhoods are involved in something like that. I will have to say that I have been born and raised in this city 50 years, and I have had the opportunity to know many, many people across many different sectors of this community. And to see Ward 3 come up the way it has is really an amazing thing. I see the businesses growing on Mill Street, Wells, Midtown. I'm seeing what's happening down, in Hidden Valley and Veterans Parkway and all these different areas, and it's fascinating to me to see what's happening. So I have many, my relationships run very deep, and my relationships run very broad because I love people and I am a communicator at heart. I have a background in journalism, in media, and public speaking, and so I just find it suits me to talk to people and connect with people across communities. I've spent many, many years of my life, 35 years at least, in the interfaith and faith world. I've been to all the churches I can think of, in synagogues and the mosque, even in Sparks, and I know all those people. I'm in healthcare, I'm in the Latino community, I'm in advocacy, I'm in the LGBTQ community, I'm in athletics. My gym is even in Ward 3. I've been there. And I'm on boards, and I've been on boards with UNR and the education system, and even the old post office, on Vassar Street. So, it's all about community connections, really. And when you're out in the community, meeting people, talking to people, seeing them in businesses, seeing them in church, seeing them at wherever the grocery stores, as Kyle said, you get to know the community. And I'm proud to say that I believe I do know community. There's always more to learn, and I'm looking forward to it.
So similar to the rest of the applicants, I haven't had a chance to serve on the neighborhood advisory board specifically, but I have had the chance to serve as an altar boy for almost 5 years at the Little Flower when I was younger. And my mom used to take me when I was there. And even though it was difficult for me to embrace while I was doing it, I see the value that she was trying to instill in me when I was doing that. And outside of that, I have coordinated volunteer opportunities for students in our programs to do community service at Miguel Rivera Park, which is in this ward, and then also Melody Lane Park, which is not in the ward, but it was still a collaboration that we did with Keep Truckimeros Beautiful to try to beautify our areas and make them a little bit nicer for the community and clean up stuff that we found around there. The other thing I wanted to mention that even though I haven't specifically been involved with those things, some of the things that I did learn from these activities was that sometimes people just need somebody who's there that's going to listen to them, attentively, who's going to take their perspective into consideration, and that's they're actually going to take that of value and use it when they're going to make their decision and make an informed decision. So something that I have learned from that is being a collaborator, having an open ear for the people that come and talk to me, and making sure that they feel supported and represented when it comes to policy decision making or budget allocations for the city board.
Right on time, about 7 minutes left, and I've got one question, so we should be able to get through this, no problem. So generally, we've been asking you questions specific to Ward 3. And I know that even though you are elected into that ward by the voting members when it comes to 2024, you are still a representative of the city at large in this capacity. So the last and final question is, what do you believe to be the most important issues facing the city of Reno? And how would you go about addressing them? Sean, we'll go ahead and start.
I know, and how do I want to say this? I have come from the nonprofit world, small businesses and large corporations. Government is similar to the nonprofit world. It's run by committee. And when you are working in a nonprofit world, what you take in revenue goes right back in to serve the organization for which you work. Salaries aside, of course, cost of doing business aside, of course, and the same is true in government. You have to be able to put back into the community. So I believe that my experience in the nonprofit world lends me to work in government. I think that the issues facing Reno, just as we are faced with in large corporations, is silos. People working without communication, not being able to collaborate across offices, across hallways. I'm not suggesting that our city folks don't do that. What I'm suggesting is that I think we can all work better together as a community. And I think that the issues that face Ward 3, while they may be distinct and unique in some senses, are really no different in the greater picture to the rest of the city, and that is affordability, access to good places and safe places to recreate. We want to tackle our mental health issues. We want to have health services for our people. We want to have safe streets. We want to have law enforcement that works with the people. We want to support our seniors. We want to make sure our children are safe and our grocery stores are safe. So these are all issues I believe that are facing the entire community. And when it comes to serving on the city council, while we may be restricted by certain codes, by certain statutes, and by certain other limitations, we do represent the entire city, as our candidate already said. And what's important there is we serve on various boards and commissions. The person who is selected has to be able to represent the ward and the city on multiple boards and commissions, and including arts and culture, education, veterans, homeless, and so forth.
They did. Thanks so much for the question. Some of the important issues aside from what Sean has already mentioned, I would say that and I don't think this situation is unique to Reno, but there's always some sort of fear or mistrust in government. And so hopefully, if I were appointed to this position, I could try to represent, like I've been mentioning, the city of Reno and the ward in good light and make sure to make the best decisions for our constituents. And outside of that, I believe that there is a lot of need for our parks and recreation, the accessibility to our parks and recreation, making sure, as one of the other candidates mentioned earlier, giving some love to some of our parks and recreation, but that have not been given that sort of love recently, and may need that to come up to a better place than where they're at right now. So being a representative of the ward were I to be appointed, I would try to get more input from more constituents, because obviously I'm just one person and it's just my own single experience, but I would like to bring a collective voice when I'm up at the city council and making decisions for us as a ward.
You. I like this question because it's important to remember that when we're driving down the streets of Reno, you don't see a sign that says now entering Ward 1 or now leaving Ward 3. And so in order to really address the issues that we all highlighted are pressing in Ward 3, we have to work together as a city council to address the issues as a whole. And I think the most pressing issue that we will continue to face as a city is regional growth, which is not just a city of Reno issue. It is a Washoe County issue. It is a city of Sparks issue. And I'm happy to see that our local governments are starting to come together and have a regionalization conversation, specifically when we're talking about public safety and our fire response and our medical response across the region. And, with regional growth, we're going to continue to see strains on our public safety, our physical infrastructure, our roads, our sewers, but also our social infrastructure that we have in place. And so, I think I have really great experience working at the state level, all the way down to the local level, to also have an understanding of what these conversations are looking like outside of the city of Reno, and what our fellow partners across the city are all dealing with, because it's just, again, not just unique to the boundaries we have drawn for Ward 3 for the city of Reno and the rest of our municipal partners. And so I go back to that experience that I have of bringing stakeholders from across the state with varying interests together to get real solutions and things done for Nevadans.
Where my voice is going. I agree with everything that the fellow panelists have said, the fellow applicants have said. I think that I'm going to flip the question around a little bit. I think we have a tool at our disposal that maybe addresses a lot of our issues, and that is maybe the way that we go about doing them or solving those problems. We're roughly 5 years into implementing the Reimagine Reno master plan. We've got another 15 years on the horizon to do that. And it's a plan that has, 8 kind of broad general principles. And these are things like smart growth, resilient communities, making sure that our public safety, our social structures are all robust enough to deal with the growth that we know is coming, right? I think it's something like 60,000 new Renoites in the next couple of years. And so I think fealty to that or honoring that master plan and that vision and implementing it and making everyone feel ownership of it is a good tool to kind of address those needs. You can think about it from a legal context as like a constitution, right? And that is kind of the founding document or kind of the guiding document that upon which we ought to be building general strategic planning. We ought to be implementing and updating our municipal code and our permitting systems. And so we ought to be guided by those general principles where we did as much as we could, reach out into the community to distill that information and bring that together. And then as we go forward, it's a document that's supposed to be living, it's supposed to be revisited every year or two. And so continuing to press out into the community, get input, reincorporate that and iterate those plans to make sure people are bought in. A big issue aside from everything we mentioned, housing, public safety, parks, et cetera, growth, is community, right? It's both a resource and a challenge, where these are divided times, people don't feel connected. And I think reaching out again with love into people's spaces, into where they are ways to connect with them and make people feel like they have a role to play in shaping the way that our community unfolds over the next.
So thank you all so much for participating in this, and also for those of you who have joined us tonight here in person and online. The question form is closed at the moment, but after this meeting, we will reopen it. So if you had questions that you really would like the community or the individuals here to engage with, please go and submit your questions so that we can utilize them in tomorrow's question and answer session. We will reuse them if we don't get new submissions. So if you're out there and you have stuff that wasn't addressed tonight, please go in and submit your questions so that we can make sure that we're understanding who our applicants are and how they're ready and willing to serve you all in the community. So we'll go ahead and close our hybrid session. I will allow each of you 1 minute closing statements so that we can get out into our meet and greet. And so we will go ahead and start with Kyle, and one quick minute.
Yeah, you guys have heard enough from me already. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I hope that I've expressed my vision for the community and how I would be a part of the council, how I would be a part of your lives, and how I'd reach out to everyone, including the many folks that are not here in this room for any of a number of reasons. 24/7, 20 times for meetings, that kind of thing. I'm here for it. So thank you for the time, for the opportunity, for listening, and I'm gonna try to yield any remaining time I have.
Very similarly, I just want to thank everyone who's here today on Zoom and submitted questions ahead of time for participating in this process again. I love public service, and this would be an honor to continue my career in public service in this capacity and as a member of the council, and continue to address the pressing issues that our community is facing, but also highlight some of the great things that we're accomplishing as well. Again, if we don't have an opportunity to chat today, or you want to know more about me or set some times up to grab coffee, my phone and emails on the application. So please feel free to reach out. And I would love to get to know all of you and get to know folks via Zoom if they reach out via email as well. But thank you all again for being here this evening and participating.
Thank you all again for coming and being here, those who are present in the room and those who are on Zoom. Thanks to our city council members for participating, to the city staff for making this possible, to my fellow applicants for sharing this panel with me. I would also like to add that, as Courtney said, if you would like to get together and talk, please do feel free to reach out. I will also add one thing. When we're talking about time dedicated to this, which there's maybe one advantage I have is that I don't have a spouse. I don't have a spouse, and I don't even have a dog. So there's a lot of extra time that I can commit to the city council. So I'm happy to do that and take all my free time. So I would like to also say in Spanish, ahora les pido su apoyo en este nuevo proyecto de ser concejal de la ciudad de Reno. And I really appreciate the opportunity to represent my city, my state, the battle born. We're going to get through these hard times. We're going to work together. And the most important thing for me is collaboration. And I'm looking forward to working with the city council members who have really done their hardest to set a vision for the city. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nada más quiero decir gracias por la oportunidad. Espero ganarme su confianza y seguir luchando por nuestra comunidad. Help to win your trust, and together we can achieve more. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about my involvement in the community and vision for the Ward 3 council seat. I hope to serve in this council seat to serve my neighbors and my community. Please connect with me if you would like to after this hybrid session is over, or anytime later, similar to the rest of the applicants. My information is online. You're welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions or you'd like to sit down to get to know a little bit more about me. Thank you so much. Juntos vamos a lograr mucho. Gracias.
Thank you.
So Vicky, we can't ask any questions here.
We are not doing it on the hybrid, so we're going to turn the Zoom off, and then they're free. They're going to get up and mingle with the ask questions.
Okay.
Not going.
And they're out.